Thank you, Joyce, for being our guest speaker this month. And Joyce is with Cleary Zimmermann. I will let her give a little bit of her background and her history, but I just wanted to first say thank you so much for presenting and being our guest speaker. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Courtney. I'm happy to be here. So as you can see, today we are talking about reporting for business development and proposal customization. My name is Joyce Watson, and I'm a CPSM, work with Cleary Zimmermann Engineers, and I'm the marketing director here. So make sure I'm clicking in the right place. There we go. Okay, so first I'm going to give you a brief overview of our presentation. I'm going to give you a little bit more of an introduction about me and my experience with CoCentral. We're going to dive into how reporting really starts with the data. Then we're going to move on to general reporting tips, follow that with BD reporting, and then finish up with reporting for marketing specifically. So that's me. I don't have my video, but I do have my headshot. Again, my name is Joyce Watson. I'm the Director of Marketing with Cleary Zimmermann Engineers. We implemented CoCentral in June 2016, so we've been using it for about 3.5 years. In my previous 2 jobs with a school district and with a nonprofit, I had been using databases, and so I really understood their utility. And when we implemented CoCentral, I dove right into all of the reporting capabilities and the proposal generation, especially because it made my life so much easier as the one doing the bulk of the proposal generation and production. So think about the types of reporting y'all have been doing, what you might need help with, and we'll have, I guess you can jump in with questions throughout the presentation, but if you have anything, I've also got a question slide at the end. So let's dive right into the data. So data reporting, it really starts, like a lot of things in CoCentral, during implementation. The key is how you organize your data. You want to make sure that you're inputting the data that you want to report on into the system. So you need to figure out what kind of data is important to your specific firm. Do you want opportunity tracking for sales? Do you want contact names for mailing lists? Do you want project data for proposal generation? Do you want all of it, which is what my firm, Cleary Zimmermann, does. So the first step is really defining what you want to get out of the system so you can determine what you want to put in. The next thing that you want to do is define what fields you're using for what particular piece of information. If a lot of you use CoCentral, you know there's some fields that are close but not quite the same. For example, completion date versus construction completion date. You have to kind of pick one, or whatever date field is your preferred date field, and then make sure you're using that consistently with all of your project information. Otherwise, as long as everyone is putting their information in the same place, you can pull reports that will be, robust. But if people are putting data in all different types of date fields or cost fields, your reports are going to be empty. And so that's really, it's really important that your people know where to put the data, that you document where you're putting this data, and the thought process behind why it's going in that particular place. That way, if there's staffing changes or you're trying to train new people, you can always go back to the what and the why, and really the where. And then really the most important thing, which I'm sure a lot of you have encountered, is that you need to ensure that your data is updated consistently. So when you have accurate data, people will use it, people will trust it, and it will really become central to the way you do business. Getting your people to use it and trust it is a whole different animal, which I know has been covered on other calls, so we're not going to dive in too deeply there. But what has worked really well for us at Cleary Zimmermann is using the financial data connector to pull live information from our accounting system, which is a JIRA. And some of the most useful information that we bring over, at least in my book, are projects, including their project numbers, and with them, their staff team hours. So we have a live view of what everyone has worked on. So yeah, so once you have all this good data, you're going to want to report on it. And so let's move on now into how we start pulling useful reports. So I've got 4 general reporting tips, and then we're going to dive deeper into each of them, and I'm going to overview them first. The first is know your fields. The second is my favorite tip in the book, Control F. Third is how to understand how to limit your search results. especially knowing the difference between the only get results where versus your filter options, and then creating the reports that your leadership needs because you are the expert. So first, in Know Your Fields, I counted today, there are 357 fields that you can choose from, and that's just in these check boxes under the project report. So that's a lot. So I would recommend taking the time to really dive in, and when you have the time, read through all the fields and know what they are so you know what your options are to choose from. Keeping in mind that what something is called in the projects module or the contacts module or one of the kind of main modules might be a little bit different than it is in the reports module. As you can see from the Know Your Fields prime example on your screen right now, the AE building publish cost it looks quite, I don't want to say totally different, but different enough that you might not be able to find it if you don't know what you're looking for. Under the projects module, it's under a line that says total construction, but it's in the published cost column. And there's that building line in there, and that's where that feeds from. However, under the reports module, it's oops, my highlight is in the wrong place. That red box should be on AE building published cost. So as you see, even me putting together this presentation, I put the box in the wrong place. So there's all that to say, there's a ton of options. So know exactly what you're looking for and what specifically it's called in the reports module. Once you know what your fields are called, like I said, my favorite trick in the book is Control F, which is simply a browser function. As you can see outlined in red, when you press Control F, it pulls up this little search box, and you're just searching on the straight up text on the page. So when I type in firm org, it highlights and jumps down to my firm org categories within the reports module. And so that's a really quick way to get a lot of fields in your report really quickly. And you can kind of see, if you're not exactly sure which firm org you want to pull, it highlights all of your options. I would say next, the key thing is in limiting your results is understanding the difference between the ways you can limit your search results. So there's a lot of ways, and I've kind of detailed two of the main ones here. The first is only get results where, and that's what you'll see on the first screen when you're creating a report. It's all the way down at the bottom. I've boxed it in red, only get results where, and that's where you can really constrain your search results quite tightly. However, it does create a funnel. So you're going to start off with a bigger group of projects, and as you add additional constraints using your and or logic, you're going to gradually shrink the amount of results that you're pulling. And that's where you really have to be careful, is with that and or logic. Sometimes what you think you're pulling is not what you're actually pulling. And I know that, at least for me, can be really frustrating. And that also really requires a precise understanding about not only your fields, but your value lists, because these boxes right over here, those are free text fields. And so that's just, you need to know what your value lists are, because if you're saying, I don't know, offices instead of office building, that'll get you different results. And honestly, I find it's easier to make more mistakes and pull an empty report. However, if you click into the second screen, that's where you get your filter options. And I find those honestly to be a lot more useful. You can filter by things like construction type, staff team name, component type, parent-child companies. Some of them are on the screen: component type, construction type, staff team name. And they really just, in my opinion, give you a lot more freedom and options without worrying about overly limiting the amount of data that you're pulling. The include in main query constraint checkbox makes it function like an only gets results where. So you need to make sure that
Joyce,
you're choosing right.
Can you go back to that other slide, the previous slide?
Sure.
There was something I wanted to point out too, is before they redid this to where you could do filter by, you were limited to 8 fields. So if you had a 9th field, or if you were trying to search or limit by 10, you had to do 2 different reports. So this is a way that you can search or constrain by more than 8 fields. So if you have, for those of us that have had CoCentral longer than the filter by on the second screen that she shows here, you can now go back and redo those old reports if you ran up against the issue of 8 field constraints weren't enough for you. That's all I want to add.
Yeah, that is an absolutely great point. And we've had CoCentral now for 3.5 years, and we were using it after, before and after they made that switch. And honestly, it has made a world of difference. So thank you for pointing that out. Moving on to the difference between only get results where, so basically using that only get results where, or including the main query constraint, clicking that box right here where my mouse is, those function the same way. And so using either one of those search logics, this is what I pulled. Basically, this is new construction projects at Trinity University, right? So we have 2. However, if you're filtering by new construction costs, but you don't include it in the main query constraint, that's what this box is right here. See, there's our same 2 projects, but it lists all the projects at Trinity University instead of limiting it to only those that are new construction. So, and that can, if you're not super, if you don't do a lot of reporting, that might be a little tough, so let me know if you have any questions now or later. My last tip on reporting is create the reports that your team needs. You are the expert in CoCentral, and if you can create for them the reports that they need to track proposals or find the best contact for a certain project or a certain opportunity, it really can prevent frustration and burnout and encourage user adoption. And that quote is something that Danny Zimmermann, one of our principals, actually, said to me in a staff meeting, because I was able to create opportunity reports and for him and, other ones for Wade. And especially if your leadership staff is not necessarily the most database savvy, they just want it to be done, right? So if you can create a one-click button for them, create a report and put it on their homepage that they can pull up whenever they need it, that really can be helpful to them and can really kind of elevate your status in your firm. That brings me to BD reporting, so reporting for business development activities. So that really falls under the opportunities, activities, companies, and contacts, at least it does for Cleary Zimmermann. So we use our reports for BD in a couple of different ways. So we have a Monday morning meeting, and every Monday, our team leads meet, and our managing principal pulls up a report that I'm about to drop on your screen, and it's outstanding opportunities, proposals by date with fee stage 6 only. So those are just all of our outstanding opportunities, and we kind of scroll through and see, okay, what is happening with this? Do we know what's coming next? It spurs follow-up. It spurs intel for BD. If our guys are going out and they've got meetings, we could, check in with clients on what projects we have kind of out there and what could be coming down the pipeline. Another business development report we use is our weekly update. Or I should say there's actually 2 reports in the weekly update. So our managing principal on Friday afternoon sends us a recap with some type notes on internal operations, but the following 2 reports have actually replaced notes that we all used to have to write. So we have our opportunities touched in the last 7 days. So this shows any opportunity that has been moved into a different stage. So, from prospecting to submitted proposal to under contract, whatever it is. And then the other thing that's included is a weekly activity all. So this is all of the call logs that have been created in that past week. So who's seeing who's grabbing coffee with who, their notes, and that also really keeps everybody on the same page. So I don't have to check in with every single one of our principals to know what they did that week. So that's really helpful and has really reduced duplicate data entry on our part. It can also be used, we also use it for client capture. We have a new, or I should say a relatively new director of business development, and he's really been focusing on higher education. And he was looking for a way to prioritize clients within the higher education sector. So I pulled for him our bookings in higher ed, both, for 2018 and 2019. So then he was able to export that into Excel and kind of play around with it, create his top 10 clients, and really strategize from there. Client care entertainment, this is some of the fun stuff. So again, our business development director wanted to, maybe send some cards to our clients, that kind of thing. And so I pulled him a report that was all of our, it was grouped by all of our clients, and so he kind of prioritized who he wanted to go visit. Another fun one is what I call we use mailing lists. But if we, for example, we've got them sorted for fishing, hunting, golf, table sponsorship. So if we have, tickets to a sporting event, or we have a fishing charter, we know these are folks that like fishing, right? These are folks that like hunting. These are folks that like to play golf. And these are folks who like to go to galas and sit at tables. So if we're it reduces kind of the scramble of who are we going to invite? It's a week away. What do we do? So that has really made it useful for us. Especially, we used to just have one office here in San Antonio. Now we have offices in Bryan College Station and Houston. So anyone can add, names to that list by associating individual contacts to a mailing list, and then everyone has access to this resource. And this morning, while I was preparing for this presentation, I talked to Anthony Medina, our Director of Business Development, and I asked him, I said, what do you think, about Cosential and our reporting, and how is it helpful for you? And he said that he had previously used other CRMs, including Zoho and Razor's Edge. But what he likes the most about Cosential is that the information is live. The reports are live, so they're always up to date. It's a one-stop shop, so he can create the report, or I can create it for him once. And then every time he clicks it, it's always up to date. And he's a great champion of Cosential because he understands that it's only as good as we make it. And so, garbage in, garbage out. He does a stellar job of getting all of his information in there, especially because he's out and about so much, meeting with so many people. So his information is really a wealth of intelligence for us. And then finishing up with marketing reporting. So mostly in our world, that means we're reporting on personnel and projects. And so these are the following are some of the ways that I use it to customize proposals. So one of the things I use it for is to determine which staff member is the best fit for a pursuit. So I filter relevant projects by staff team names to see who has the most experience. For example, this is a report trying to figure out who I should use on a fire station, right? So we see Ben Rodriguez has 4, Matthew Smith has, 7 or 8, and then Thomas Watson has, 10 or half or a dozen. So you can, it gives you a sense of who in your firm has the most experience with any given project type. And then once you have that information, you can use it to build a resume. The other thing it does is if I were to pull up that same report and there was only 1 or 2 projects listed per person, maybe that means that we can't make a strong enough case on paper to go after this pursuit, and maybe we should no-go it. Even if we've already kind of started, if it's going to be hard to prove to the owner or the client that we're a good fit for this project, maybe we just shouldn't do it. So that's something else to think about in reporting for marketing. Another thing, if any of you especially work for the Texas A&M University system or any other public institution that asks you for a breakdown of your staff, that has been something that we use a lot. We have a breakdown of our staff by type, so administrator, CAD, commissioning, construction administration, designer, EIT, licensed engineer, technology, et cetera. So that way, if we kind of have our template of that chart ready to go, we can just update the numbers. And that's actually something we did today. probably one of the most important things is selecting relevant projects to use in any given submittal. And one of my favorite ways to do that is using components. So for example, especially so I think Cleary Zimmermann, I think we use components the way a lot of people use primary categories. And that honestly comes from our implementation when our primary categories were coming over from our financial data connector and we didn't quite want to get rid of them yet. So we rely on components a lot. So for example, this is a report with the component being animal veterinary, right? So that's sort of a niche thing that we work on, but we have 15 projects with it. And so sometimes if people ask us, oh, have you ever done an animal care facility? If someone asks me for a project list on animal care facility, I can pull this in, under a minute, honestly. So it has been really valuable for that. Same thing, and that's just based on component, but this is a church's version of that. And this is based on the content of the published project name and the component type. So there's a lot of options there. Then with project lists, you can create a report and then generate a project list. For example, this is for us, we're an MEP firm, so this is our building MEP division, higher ed by owner. So we've got Alamo Colleges, Baylor, Del Mar, et cetera. And so that's a really quick way. If someone asks me, oh, can you send me a list of your higher education projects? I can, save this, generate it into a project list template, and get that out the door very quickly. For resumes, you can do them, you can create reports and then have those reports brought into your resume templates. But for me, I honestly just usually generate the content of the resumes from the publisher module directly using the project list criteria, which is one of those radio buttons that you can choose from. However, if it is a really complex project or I want to make sure I'm capturing a lot of different types of information in one resume, I will use a report for that. And the key fields that I tend to use and constrain by to customize for marketing materials are our firm orgs, which are those kind of big organizational umbrellas that your CoCentral has set. For us, those are service offering. So, building MEP, commissioning, industrial MEP, IT security, office, Houston, Bryan College Station, San Antonio, market, sectors, so higher ed, K through 12, et cetera. Those components that I was talking about, and we have them from everything from hydronic boilers to high school to, I don't know, you name it, we probably have a component for it. Construction type, so your renovations, new additions, studies, et cetera. Client or owner. Today I was putting together resumes for an architect, and they wanted not only our experience with the project type, but with them specifically. So that was really easy to pull. And then of course, if we don't have it in our components or we can't find it anywhere else, this was something that someone taught me decently far into my CoCentral career, if you will, is that the descriptions are totally searchable. I think, and Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, I think perhaps in the past they were only keyword searchable, but now they are definitely fully searchable. So any given word in there, you don't have to have it defined as a keyword to be able to search by it. So that's all I have in terms of prepared material, but ask me anything. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
That was fantastic, Joyce. I just want to remind everybody that at the beginning of the call, there was, while everybody was introducing themselves, we either muted ourselves or I have tried to mute if there was any feedback. So to ask Joyce questions, make sure that you unmute, or you can use the chat window if you're having issues with your audio.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, this is Jen Allen from CKearney Construction. So you mentioned that you associate mailing lists to contacts. So I'm curious, do you use CoCentral's email blasts, or do you use a different mail client for your emailing?
We don't actually. We used to use Constant Contact. We have since transitioned to MailChimp because of the design capabilities and sort of an easy to useness of it. So what we do is we'll export a fresh contact list, if you will, from CoCentral every time we send out an e-blast.
Okay, so you export it out of CoCentral and then upload it into MailChimp?
Correct. And we create, I think it's called like a new group or a new list or something like that. Because for us trying to keep, because we have defined CoCentral as the truth for contacts. And granted, we don't send out a ton of e-blasts. You know, it's probably, I don't know, a dozen a year or something like that, if even that many. So I would say if you're using it more, you might have different, you know, constraints. But for us, that has worked just fine, because CoCentral is the truth for contacts and for marketing information. And so we know that's always where the most up-to-date information will be, not in people's Outlooks, not in Constant Contact, but in CoCentral.
Thanks.
I have a follow-up to that. You can also use Zapier to connect those so that your information automatically, if you enter in CoCentral, your contact information can push over to your mail campaign tool of choice, whether that's MailChimp or Constant Contact or what have you. So you can go from CoCentral or other CRMs for those that have other systems. Zapier is just a third-party API tool that lets you have an API integration with user-friendly interface. So you just go in and you say, I want to start here and I want the data to push over to here. And it's just like a mail merge where you just select the fields and then it pushes it over. If you do have more information or want more information, there is a blog post about Zapier on our website. Is there anybody on the call using Zapier that's happy with it? Okay. I know that we at CKC use it because I'm a firm believer that that which has been typed should never be typed again. So we type contact information once and then it goes over to our MailChimp account so that our contacts stay clean in MailChimp, but we don't have to re-enter them. I know we've set it up for some of our clients as well. It looks like, Heather, you have your hand raised if you have a question.
Yes. Joyce, when you create your reports, do you know, or have you ever played with, or is it even possible to use the publisher tool to export those reports into a publisher designed format?
Like Microsoft Publisher or like InDesign?
No, like CoCentral Publisher. So like you run a report, your project list, for example, do you run it and then copy and paste that project list into InDesign on your computer, or are you able to open Publisher and run the report? I'm sorry, are you able to go into the Publisher module of CoCentral and run your report through a template that you've already set up?
Yes, the second way.
Okay.
You create, you create your reports in the reports module, you create your templates in InDesign, and then you upload them to the publisher module. And then to generate, let's say, a project list with that animals and veterinary list, there'll be a select button, and you can either select from your list of reports, of all your reports, and you can choose that animals, veterinary, or you could search by the component within that kind of search feature in the module itself.
Okay.
And I would say that is, go ahead.
I was going to say my head is exploding with possibilities.
Yeah, I would say that's my secret sauce. I mean, the feedback I get all the time is, oh my gosh, y'all are so fast. How do you do it? I mean, and it's CoCentral and the publisher module, and having this, you know, honestly insane searchability. So that has really been a game changer for me. And I will say, honestly, I think it's a great, if you're struggling with retention of your proposal staff, I mean, this, at least for me, I mean, having CoCentral, learning CoCentral, working through it, being able to report in it and generate, you know, all kinds of marketing materials. I mean, I think it really kept me around, or it has kept me around Cleary Zimmermann, because it felt like a professional challenge. It felt like I wasn't correcting the same text edits in our project list over and over again, which is, you know, 4 years ago, that's what we were doing. You know, we had our project list in Excel, and every time we needed to pull a higher education resume, we had to go in and correct all the abbreviations for, you know, TAMU for Texas A&M University, and spell that all out, you know, using control find or, find replace in InDesign, and that's a non-issue anymore. And so it's really validating that you can, put out really professional looking materials really quickly and get positive feedback from your clients, both internally and externally.
Okay. I have a follow-up question, if that's okay. And it's probably a two-part question, but how long from when you signed up for CoCentral to full use, how long did it take you for the implementation? Did you find that okay, we're going to skip that part. How long did it take you for the implementation? And then I'll remember the better way to ask the second part of that question.
I would say all in all, it was probably a full calendar year before we were really blowing and going. We started in June, and we had the assistance, honestly, this was a major help as well, of 3 fantastic interns who were actually on our technical side of things, on our engineering side, but we pulled them in to help with marketing to get all the contacts and companies in there. I put in all of the personnel. We hooked up the financial data connector to get all of our projects into CoCentral. And then from there, we started adding in all of our project descriptions, and as we would work on, proposals that were going out the door, information we had in those, we put in CoCentral. And I think it helped. I think it helped. There were 2 of us, me and my old boss, Krista Reed. CoCentral was a big project for us. It continues to be a project. I have a new marketing specialist, Angela, and she is, already jumping right into CoCentral. And we wrote a project description yesterday and put it in. So I would say, really a full year. We were using it on the marketing side sooner than that. Probably by the fall, I was starting to play around with generating, first generating reports, and then, kind of figuring my way through the templates in the publisher module. And then in the beginning to mid 2017, that's when we started using it for opportunity tracking. And so that's how, and what we made, and you can, Krista actually did a user call earlier in the year about this, but we made the project number our carrot, because that's something that we know that our PMs and our engineers need. And in order to get that project number now, they have to go through CoCentral. They have to enter all their information into the CoCentral opportunity, attach a fee proposal. When it's a win, it kicks a notice to accounting. They create the job number, but they have to get that notice from CoCentral first. So we definitely implemented it on the marketing side first, and then the opportunity tracking side second, and then we really amped it up with tracking our call logs, which are our business development tracking. So if I go to lunch with someone and I find out about a project lead, I'll enter that in and I'll associate it with their company and that person and other people we may have talked about. And so that, we've been doing that probably for, a year and a half, 2 years now. And especially with Anthony, our new business developer, who, is out there all day, every day, that wealth of knowledge only continues to grow.
Cool, thank you. Oh, hold on, I'm sorry, we have one more question, if that's okay. We're hijacking this. Taking over. Hey, Joyce, it's Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
And do your opportunities then feed the project? So like if you put in your proposed project team and the opportunity, will it migrate to the project if you convert it from an opportunity into a project?
So we just, honestly, the way we use it, we don't include our staff team, and we have the project manager maybe, and that will migrate over. But the way we do it, so short answer, yes. When you convert that opportunity to a CoCentral project, all that information from the opportunity transfers into the CoCentral project record. But for us, it also kicks a notice to accounting, who sets up a matching job in a JIRA. So for every job that we win, for a little while, there's actually 2 project records in CoCentral. There's the CoCentral project record, and then what I would call the JIRA project record that comes in through the financial data connector. And that is something that we merge manually here in the marketing department. and it's a pain in the butt, I'll say that. But we have found it to be really the only way that we can not only capture all that information that was captured in the opportunity phase, while at the same time having our staff team hours transfer over and making it useful on the marketing side and on their resumes. So while it's kind of a pain to have to merge those projects, it also, it keeps us aware in the marketing department of every job that comes in the door, because we have to look at it and merge it together. So not the most efficient thing that ever happened. If anyone has any fixes for that, I would love to hear them. But that is how we manage to keep our information connected to the Jira version of the project.
Does anybody else have any additional questions or want to use the chat? I know some have audio trouble or in a loud office, so feel free to use the chat window. Joyce, I really liked your slide earlier about how reports can help not only with boosting user adoption and buy-in, but this one I really liked how you brought the leadership aspect into it. I think it also helps make your ROI of the system tangible. So when people are seeing the reports, they feel like, okay, our CRM was worth the purchase, people are using it. So every time that we can drive people to a result coming out of the CRM system, I think that that's really beneficial. A lot of times marketers will use it for information or quick access or proposal submittals, but that's not tangible, especially to leadership. So anytime that we can produce something or share that that's where we got the information. I know that when we first started with one of our clients, they were doing printouts of the opportunity information that was in CoCentral and would take the printouts to the meeting. And one of the things that we quickly changed was having them just pull up the grid live in the meeting so that they made live changes. First of all, don't even get me started on making changes on paper and then taking them back to the office, but making live changes on the grid, but it also let them see the value of the system in action. So there was some tangibility to that, and then reinforcing people are using the system, it was worth the investment. So I really just kind of wanted to add that ROI piece to that slide.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree. I mean, we are lucky here at Cleary Zimmermann that Wade Cleary, one of our owners, is very methodical, and then Danny Zimmermann, our other owner, is very technologically savvy. So together, we've really had obviously we pushed, from marketing, but we've had buy-in and leadership from the top, really setting the example. I mean, when Wade Cleary sends a handwritten thank you note, he will log that in CoCentral as a client touch, and awesome. It's amazing. We are very lucky. I know not everyone, can get that kind of buy-in from the top levels of their organization, but if you can even get half that, you'll be in good shape.
Any other questions or general feedback? If there's any ways that you guys want to share how you're using reporting or lessons you've learned over the years of reporting, definitely chime in, because I know that there's some power users on the call that we've had some fun and painful learning lessons that others can learn from.
Hey, this is Jen from CKearney Construction again. I was just going to chime in and talk about how you were talking about the constraints and the reporting on that first page, and you have the ands and the ors, and it's so challenging to train on that. I figured out a way to get everyone to understand how to use the ands and the ors by explaining it in mathematical terms. So if you think of things in brackets, and then you put a plus sign between the things you want in the first brackets and then the second brackets, it helps them understand that you have to repeat the same fields in the first section before the or and the same as after the or. So I think that was probably one of the most challenging things to figure out on my end, to get everyone to understand how it worked so that they weren't using projects that were not for what they were actually searching for.
That's awesome. I think it's a good visual too. Like even.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so they don't get so caught up in all those fields
Exactly.
and they get confused.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is, regardless of the system that you're using, definitely tap into your advanced search capacity, because I know that has been a very powerful tool for a lot of users to bypass reporting altogether. So that if you are just looking for something quick, you don't have to go through and select the fields that you want, and it's more time consuming than just jumping into your advanced search. I know I did that a lot with personnel. Hey, I need a superintendent with religious experience, and I could get it within a couple clicks instead of creating an entire report. So sometimes the way I looked at it was, if I need to save this and refer to this later, I'll create a report. If I just need it now, I'm just going to use the advanced search capabilities, so that I can just be done and not have to go through the hassle of creating a report.
Yeah, that's a great point, Courtney. And the other thing I would say about reporting, especially if you want to go back to it later, make sure you have, ideally, a defined naming convention on reports. But if not truly defined, at least, you know, people are spelling things out and spelling correctly. That way you can go back and find them. And again, that's another place where I use that Control F feature. If I'm looking for, you know, real quick, a higher ed report, and then it's like, oh, do I want building MEP higher ed, or higher ed by owner, or, you know, higher ed with component equals residence hall. I mean, it just makes it more searchable later if you're naming them accurately.
Totally. I would also suggest doing housekeeping on your reporting. I know that people that have had the system for many years, that the reports get long and cumbersome if you're not cleaning house. So there is a feature in Crescential, for those that have that as their CRM, that often gets overlooked. I don't know if you want to jump in back to your Crescential. If not, Joyce, I can share my screen and share our demo account. But I was just going to show the report to manager. That feature often gets overlooked, and it'll actually show you on the far right is a column of last used. So if you click that reports manager, it'll show you all of your reports created, and then you can sort or click the header of last used, and that gives away some old reports that you can get rid of. So my philosophy was, if kind of like clothes, if you haven't worn it in a year, get rid of it. That's how I felt about reports, because they are easily recreatable. So on that second to the last column on the right, it shows you last used. So you can sort by that. The other kind of quick way to clean house is to use the uses in the far right. If there is no number in the uses column, that means it was created and then never run again. So those are low-hanging fruit that you can get rid of. So if you have any that have the 0, or you can, you know, look at the ones or the onesie twosies. But I think that this feature often gets overlooked within CoCentral, and the power of this, so that you can see, okay, we need to clean house, or you can kind of see, run a list for your accepted reports or verification reports, audit reports, whatever you want to call them, so that you can kind of see them all together and see how often you are using them. Or if you've lost sight of, oh, when was the last time we cleaned house on emails, you can go in here and see when you last ran it.
Great, that's a great tip. And as y'all can see on where my mouse is highlighted are outstanding proposals by date with fee, stage 6 only. That's the report we pull every single Monday morning, and it's been pulled 236 times. And the other thing that popped into my mind while you were talking, Courtney, another way you can be a hero. One thing that I've earned some real brownie points with my coworkers is you can report on project experience, where staff team name contains, or you can filter whatever that person's name is, generate their experience for their, in our case, their SER, their supplemental engineering record. So all their project experience that they need to submit to get licensed. I've even created a template that you can export it so it comes out in the format that they need, and then they can edit from there. And especially if they have not been keeping track for the past 4 years like they've been supposed to, that's a really great way to make yourself useful, not only to your leadership, but to the design staff at your firm as well.
The other thing that I wanted to point out while we were here is the stats. So if you are the overall firm administrator and you want to keep tabs on your reports, if you click the stats to the right of grouped report, that will show you the 10 most often used or most popular reports. I question this obviously because we just saw the uses, so I don't really know what they are basing this off of. But if you want another place to kind of look at some of your stats on your reports, this is here. Again, I don't know how reliable it is, but it's here, so I wanted to point that out.
The other thing on reporting is that Coessential has created some kind of standard out of the box ready reports for you on, for example, like hit rate or like a staff phone list. And those are in the all reports section. You can see up here at the top, you know, opportunity statistics, summary by stage, opportunity by date. If we go into personnel, same thing, complete personnel list, complete phone list, that kind of thing. So Coessential has done, I mean, granted, those have some limitations. They might not have as many fields as you need, or there might be too many fields, but they do exist. We just used it to pull the spouse names for our Christmas party, you know, because we've got the people's spouse names in their personnel records. So the possibilities are endless.
Any other questions for Joyce or any other tips that you want to share about reporting?
Can I ask one last question?
Of course.
Mostly just out of curiosity. When Cleary Zimmermann acquired Moose Engineering and y'all have opened more offices, did you integrate, like at that point, have to integrate all of their data and then kind of go through the process again, making sure that it was tagged correctly and all the information was accurate? Or are you keeping as you grow? Or if a company decides to acquire another company, is it easier? What's the process with that, I guess?
So what we did, so thankfully for us, Moose and our other offices were kind of started from the ground up. So there wasn't a ton of historical data that we had to import. I will say that how we have dealt with that is in our firm org. So if I go to, let's say, administration, firm setup, where we have our firm orgs, we basically added more. So for service offer, that's probably the wrong place for it, probably value list. So basically we just added, there we go. We just added more options. So, and we've actually retooled our service lines a little bit. This is kind of a legacy service line for us, but that's still in there. Our offices, we actually consider it, Moose it's a separate company, it's a separate LLC, but as part of the mentor-protege relationship, Moose can utilize administrative resources from Cleary Zimmermann, and that includes marketing. So we help Moose out with their marketing, and so they're considered, in Coessential speak, they fall under the office primary org. Office divisions we don't use, and then markets we use as defined. So that's basically when we added previously, the only office here was San Antonio, and then as we grew, we added in there, and the reporting capabilities for each of these office for each of these firm org types is different. And we worked with Courtney and CKearney on kind of defining how those needed to be as we expanded and exploring options. So all that to say, it wasn't terribly difficult, but it did require thinking through the long term of what we needed out of CoCentral for those other offices and firms to see how it was going to be organized. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
Any other questions? I just want to say thank you so much, Joyce, for spending time preparing this, and then also spending the afternoon with us. If you would like to be a presenter in 2020, please fill out the information on our website. We will send an email to follow up, which will include a link to the blog post recapping this call. And on there is also a link to sign up to be a future presenter. I did want to let you know that our next call is January 9th, and we will be discussing MarTech. It's one of the fastest growing areas in technology, specifically tying marketing technology together. With the Society of Marketing Professional Services, the foundation, or the SMPS Foundation, wrote, funded, and researched the MarTech topic. And I've asked some of the SMPS Foundation leadership to come and present on their findings to the users on that call. So if you would like to hear about marketing technology and the information surrounding that topic, please join us on January 9th at 2 o'clock Central Time for our next call. For those that also participate in our marketing calls, the first Wednesday of the month falls on January 1st, and I doubt anybody wants to call into a user group call on January 1st. So we have canceled that and have asked that those people participate in our January 9th call. So we'll have both marketing and CRM calls together, which is very fitting since we're combining marketing and technology for that call. So I hope to see you there, and have a fantastic end of 2019 and hopefully a wonderful start to 2020. You guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.